MetroCount, the traffic data specialists.
When we were out on site doing the tube installation videos, we picked a spot near the office in Perth. We'll use that for our demonstration here. So here we are, Google Maps. I'll just zoom in on that location to get the site description. All right, so let's set up this logger at Socrates Parade, south of Draper Street, and we're conducting a bi-directional traffic survey. And if you look at the tube installation videos, you'll get an understanding of what it is we're doing. All right, so we minimize that map. Let's pull up MetroCount Traffic Executive. Now, as a new user, we have to set some new user options. And it generally is just a matter of choosing the OK button. So let's do that now. Yes. Now, when you're coming to analyze your data, you will use the default classification scheme. ARX, for example, is a 12 class scheme. Ostrodes 94 is similarly a 12 class scheme. Some of the details of these schemes can be found on our website. If you're in North America, you might be using one of the scheme Fs, like scheme F2 for example, scheme F99. If you're in New Zealand, you might use NZTA 2011, representing the most recent definition of the classes for New Zealand. I'm going to use ARX. We can work through the report settings. If you're in North America, you would choose advanced and choose non-metric measurements. Same in the UK. Non-metric or part metric, but we'll stick with metric for this demonstration video. Choose OK and OK again. Close. Just maximize the MTE view. MetroCount Traffic Executive starts with the help screen showing so that you can walk through aspects of the software yourself, from data collection, how to manage site lists, for example, and how to conduct traffic reports. What we want to do is show you how to operate the logger. Let's close the help screen, and here we are at the blank MTE screen. By default, it is showing you the buttons down the left-hand side which are used for operating the logger. Okay, before we communicate with the logger, we've got to set the correct communications port for our USB cable here, so just plug that in. Now notice we haven't plugged into the logger yet, and via the View menu, Settings, Communication, Local serial port at the top left, click the ellipsis, and because we've successfully installed the driver and we've plugged in our comms lead, your computer is seeing the comms lead as COM3 in this case. So I'll just highlight it and choose OK, and now we can talk to this logger. This is a brand new logger, so I'll just plug it in. The comms lead has a keyway, so it can only plug in one way. You can screw it in if you wish, but that's not necessary. The pins are long enough so that you'll establish a connection just by simply sliding it onto the contacts like that. I'll just close this communication setting. Choose RSU status. New connection, RSU identifier HD71TWAX. That's the serial number of this particular logger, which will also be shown on the side of the logger. Choose OK. So we've installed the software, we've installed the driver for the comms lead, we've established the comms port, and we're connected to our logger. And we can verify that the logger is connected because the white heart LED is glowing solid, meaning we've established a connection with the computer. You can see that change as I unplug the logger and plug it back in. Now, if I go RSU status here, this will pull up the status of the logger, and we get 5 tabs. We get a data tab, an RSU tab, a battery tab, triggers, and memory. Let's run through these tabs now. If we hit the data tab again, you can see information that is in the header of the logger, usually pertaining to the traffic survey that you are undertaking. Now this was a brand new logger, fresh out of the box, so it has factory default values. The site name, HD71TWAX, is the serial number. Attribute hasn't been filled out. The rest of the information is default values such as operator, ZAP, factory test, setup. So what we now need to do is verify that this logger can be used for the next survey. RSU tab, battery details, 6.5 volts, active life remaining 294 days, 99%. Now these are only estimates. Of course, the 294 days indicates that it's a brand new fresh battery inside here. Be mindful that if you do less frequent surveys, the battery will last a very long time. So the 294 days that is given here represents how much life the battery has for continuous surveys. Triggers, A triggers, B triggers, that represents the hits, if you like, on the A and the B. Now again, these are just factory default values. Memory, 0, okay? The logger has stored very few hits, so it's effectively used 0. Come back to the RSU status. The roadside unit is not active, so that means we can set it up for the next traffic survey. If we remember where we are, we're at Socrates Parade, south of Draper Street. We've installed the tubes. That's where we're going to set up this logger, and we're on the west side of the road. So back to MTE, close this. We'll choose Setup. Now setting up the roadside unit is simply a matter of filling out the data entry form here. Now the site is a site name or site number. You can use a site name or number based upon your organisation's preferences. We might just simply start with site number 1. If I put preceding zeros in there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros, number 1, that will allow us to have many sites in this survey program. The attribute is some method of combining your sites together so that you can find them afterwards. The attribute could be your organisation name, it could be a special project, it could be the client that you're conducting the surveys for. We might put just the suburb name in there. That suburb is called North Coogee. That would mean that any surveys we did in North Coogee, we could find them based upon that attribute name. The operator's initials, they're my initials. Now, if we were connected to a GPS device, if we were outside and we had a GPS device hooked in, we could record the latitude and longitude of where we were setting up this logger as well. In this case, I won't bother. Start time. The default is immediately, and really there's not a great deal of reason to vary that. If you're doing a number of surveys in a day, you might like a clean start to all your traffic surveys. So you could choose, for example, set to start on the next day, which would mean the loggers will all start at midnight tonight. But I'll just leave it as start immediately, and you have other options there as well. Most people would use start immediately. You can always adjust the start and end time in the software during data analysis, so it's not mandatory to have a clean start and finish time. Here's the site description. Now, notice how we had a site number or a site identifier. Some people put a lengthy description in the site identifier. That's fine, but the site identifier is usually used by some other computer program, computer system afterwards. Say if you're doing surveys for a state road authority, they may have a special numbering system where the number is the key for uploading the data afterwards. But it's the site description where we can put a human readable description for the survey location. So we're at Socrates Parade, south of Draper Street. You can get as verbose as you like with your site descriptions, and in fact I would encourage that, because It's not just you that needs to find out where you did your survey later, it's all your clients and internal customers, consultants, anybody that's going to be using this data needs to know where the survey was collected. Now, this is a 2-tube survey, and that's the default value here, axle sensors paired, giving us class, speed and count. So we'll just leave it in that default. It knows that the logger is a MC 5600 and the channel should always remain 0 for a 5600. But we were bi-directional. We were on the west side of the road, and the northbound A to B, southbound B to A. So we choose direction code 7. The logger is clearly marked with A and B sensors, and depending which tube you plug into the logger, that defines the direction of flow over the tubes. In the particular example that we did, the southernmost tube was the A tube, the northernmost tube was the B. So northbound A to B, southbound B to A. If we flip the hoses around, we might be southbound A to B, northbound B to A, but in this case, direction code 7. Note the unidirectional options here. Quite often you conduct a survey with just a single lane and you would choose direction codes 1 through 4, but this is bidirectional, so direction code 7. Tube spacing, you can set in both millimeters or in feet and inches. The default value is 1000 millimeters. We'll leave it at that. Now the lockout. When you hit the lockout, it presents you with a range of options here, but essentially we're just chasing 2 options. We're chasing 10 milliseconds for multiple lanes or 30 milliseconds for a single lane. If we look back at the site direction code here, northbound A to B, southbound B to A, that's 2 lanes. It's a multiple lane, so we choose 10 milliseconds. And that's basically all there is to it. The logger will start running straight away. We're at site number 1, we're in North Coogee as the suburb, Socrates Parade, south of Draper Street, tube spacing 1000 millimeters, northbound A to B, southbound B to A, lockout 10 milliseconds. The form is complete, so we choose OK. Setup is complete. Choose status to confirm. Now here we are, here's the status screen again. Site name, site number 1, North Coogee, Socrates Parade, south of Draper Street. That's the information we've entered into the logger. So this logger is now operational. And if I unplug the comms lead, you'll see that the heart LED is flashing once a second. That tells us that the logger is functioning and gathering data. Now, if we were on site with this logger, we would be connected up to the road tubes. We're not in this case, we're just doing a simulation. But if I simulate A hits by tapping the sensor, you can see the red LED operating there.